first-time viewers. So basically, it just sort of distorts your sense of reality and everything. It looks like there's no end or no beginning to the room. She also made a name for herself with these very outlandish public performances and often political statement performances that would be often very spontaneous and not known to the people, the promoters of the event. She also was working with musicians during this time. She would do performance pieces sometimes in between sets. People like Fleetwood Mac and other bands like that. So during this time, she's putting on all these shows. People might talk about these shows and these installations that they had seen for months on end, but and she's getting help too, like I said, from Georgia O'Keeffe Georgia O'Keeffe is trying to get some of her promoters, some of her galleries she works with to have some of Kusama's work in them, but she's not seeing any financial gain, so she's really struggling at this point. And in fact, one thing that was happening quite a bit was that her work was actually being copied by other artists, in particular men artists, and they would often see much more financial gain than she ever saw from any of the work, which is kind of sad. So she eventually returns to Japan in about the mid 1970s, and she spends some time then focusing on writing. So she's writing like a lot of like surrealist short stories and poetry and fiction pieces. What happens is they kind of forget about her in New York, even though there was a lot of like buzz around her while she was there. When she leaves, she's sort of forgotten, and it takes until the 1980s, like the late 1980s into the 1990s, before people start paying attention again back to Kusama, and she starts to have several galleries there in New York start to have some retrospectives of her work, and it's during this time that people really start to take notice and really become intrigued by Kusama's work, and particularly her infinity rooms. Since then, she's been creating artwork all over the world, particularly these large sculptures, performance art pieces, and her infinity rooms, which tend to be very popular with people. Some other themes that you can see throughout in these infinity rooms and in her artwork from that period on are a lot of pumpkins, mirrors, infinity, space, life, and death. The pumpkins are representative of that time when she's living really like in a very like oppressive kind of time during World War II. She's said before that her family would often not have anything really to eat besides pumpkins. So that's a theme that she kind of plays on often in her artwork. In particular, big sculptures and some of her infinity rooms are based around like lots and lots of pumpkins being in there. In 2017, Kusama had a infinity room installation which was titled "All the Eternal Love I Have for the Pumpkins." It was a huge success. There were over 8,000 visitors to the room between the time it opens and the time it actually had to close temporarily for some damage to the installation. During that time, 34,000 individual images of the infinity room were taken and posted to Instagram, and there was a hashtag Infinite Kusama that garnered 330 million impressions on Instagram. In 2017, the Kusama Museum in Tokyo opens, and in 2019, she had a new exhibit and a new book that came out that were at the David Schwerner Gallery, and she also has in January of this year, 2020, showing you she's still working at the age of 90. A new installation at the Hirshhorn Museum that is going to have 2 new infinity rooms in it as well. As far as pop culture, obviously she's very renowned in creating these pop culture images, but she's also very inspiring to other artists in popular culture. A lot of bands have written songs about Kusama or mentioned Kusama in their songs. Superchunk, La Tigra, the Boy Least Likely, the Nels Klein Singers. These are all bands who have mentioned or have songs about Kusama. Matsumatsu Performing Arts Center in her hometown actually has the whole facade of the building is covered in polka dots to pay homage to Kusama. Yoko Ono cites Kusama as a big influence on her work, and there was actually a documentary which I think you can find it on like Hulu that came out in like 2018, all about Kusama's life and her work. Despite not making any money and not really having any financial gain during her first go in New York, now her works fetch upwards in the $5 million and over range when they sell at auction. Obviously, a lot of her works aren't sellable because they are infinity rooms or installation pieces, but her paintings and things have sold for over $5 million. So, assignments for you guys. I'm going to link you to a Google Slides that has a lot of images of Kusama's work, so you can kind of see some of the different things that she does. Some of her big flower sculptures, pumpkin sculptures, some of her different infinity rooms, and some of her paintings. There's also several images of Kusama in those slides, and a lot of them you can see her blending in with her artwork, which is really cool. Other assignments I have created for you guys, and I'm going to link where you can download these from my Google Drive. And the first is, and by the way, if you do not have access to a printer, you can still do this assignment. You can just look at it on your computer and play the game and make the piece of art. As far as materials, you can use any kind of paper that you have. You can use any art materials that you have. The only like special thing that you need is a dice, which if you can find those usually, if you have to, just get one out of a board game that you might have at your house. And if you don't even have a dice at home, you could definitely like figure out another way to play this game. You could make a paper dice, or you could draw numbers out of a hat or something like that to play the game. So basically what I've created for you guys is a roll the dice game. And every time you'll just follow the steps on this worksheet, but every time that you roll the dice, it will be for to create a different part of our version of a sculpture that Kusama did this called Flowers That Bloom at Midnight. It's a big, colorful sculpture of a flower, and she actually does a lot of these sculptures, but this is one in particular. But you can, in the slides, you'll see a lot of examples of some of her other flower sculptures as well. So each time you roll the dice, you'll be creating a different part of the flower shape, the leaf shapes, the vines, the eye, which is at the center of the flowers, and the polka dots. And you can use, you'll see Kusama really likes really bright, bold colors. You can use markers, you can use crayons, paints, whatever you happen to have at home to color these. If you only have like the small size sheet of like paper, you can totally do it on there. But if you have bigger sheets of paper, by all means, please make a nice big example of your artwork. The second assignment that I'm going to upload with this is a coloring sheet of the Flowers That Bloom at Midnight that I've made for you guys, that you can kind of experiment with colors and play around with some of those different elements that are in the Kusama. She oftentimes will use two different values of the same color in an area that also is sort of like a distortion of people's sense of reality when they see that. So like she might use a dark background and a lighter green polka dot for the vines or something like that. If you don't have a printer and you're not able to print out that coloring sheet, don't worry about it. That's not that big of a deal, but do try to create the artwork. So again, this video and the art lesson that you will be creating on your own are for 2 class periods. So if you guys have any questions about anything, you can leave me some comments below the video, or you can have your parents send me an email, or you can send me an email. Or if you have any trouble downloading or anything like that, just leave me a comment. And you guys can feel free to talk to one another in the comments too about the artwork. So I look forward to seeing you soon. And remember, if you have any questions, just let me know. Thanks.